Hi Scorpio, welcome to your May 2020 tarot reading. It's Raina here. I was just getting my stuff together. I had put out one card and I decided to change the camera angle. It's a lot better, believe me. You might still think it has room for improvement, but based on what I'm up against with this jacked up tripod, this is really great. As long as it stays up here. So I'm just going to put out the rest of the cards. I didn't want to totally start over again, since I had already done this. What I wanted to say, actually, that might be interesting to some of you is that yesterday I did a reading for Leo, and but when I was thinking about what is the next sign I want to do, I was thinking of Scorpio. So like halfway through the reading, I started like forgetting that I was doing Leo, and I started addressing Scorpios. So you might think that that was really your reading, especially if this one doesn't resonate. As I recall, the Magician card was in the challenge position in both readings. I'm not sure about that. So what do we have here as major arcana cards? Oh, and it's funny because in that reading, I got the Death card, which is your card, and in this reading, I got the Strength card, which is Leo's card. So maybe there is this Leo, Scorpio thing going on. And actually, this card is the centerpiece of the reading, the Queen of Wands. I don't use the word rods, I say wands. And the sunflower, to me, symbolizes Leo. It's definitely fire energy, but it's supposed to be Sagittarius. So if you go with that, and then we have in the major arcana the Leo connection, maybe you are dealing with the Leo. But this is, we'll just talk about it beyond that. The heart of the matter, the Queen of Wands, can be... It's all, to me, when I read cards, it's either a facet of you, a part of you, a side of you, or it's an actual person in your life. Now, you have two queens here, and so queens can be mothers, so if you're somebody who is dealing with mother-in-law issues and, you know, your mother versus your mother-in-law, and they're kind of battling it out, and the ego involved with all of that, and if there's something connected to perhaps with the Queen of two queens, you being a mother and someone else, maybe your partner has a child from a previous relationship, and the two baby mamas are, oh God, I just, you know, I say that facetiously. I'm not saying this like, oh yeah, you know, because I think that's kind of, you know, I know that's tacky to talk like that, but you know, especially nowadays, there are these different configurations and adjustments that need to be made, and this can even be like a workplace situation with a female boss. Now, this is in the upright position, so I don't want to make this person out to be a bad person. This person may be very confident herself, and other people mistake it for being cocky and, you know, conceited and things like that. However, and she could be very generous and positive and encouraging. And then we have in the past position this Queen of Swords, who's more, I would say, colder. Sometimes, though, this is a combination of air and water. We're talking about in the past position. So even with you, I mean, I could even see some Leo people being this way, where you were guarded about something. So if this is like a relationship issue and you feel like a lot more open emotionally than you were in the past, then somebody is bringing that out of you, and you're like letting down your guard in a good way, compared to how Scorpios usually operate in a very kind of, being afraid of being, I don't know, taken advantage of, or it's really not taken advantage of, but betrayed in some way, exposed, having your secrets exposed, and just expressing vulnerability. But that is really important. That I think that's one of the biggest lessons that Scorpios have to learn, is how to be able to let down your guard and show your vulnerability, show some of the things that you're afraid of to people close to you, and not care, what they do with that information, and not feel like, oh my gosh, if they tell other people, then I'm going to be in a weakened state. No, there's a saying, you're only as sick as your secrets. And I would say, I wouldn't use the word sick, I would say you're only as weak as your secrets. That they weaken you. The more that you're capable of being an open book, and capable of talking about things with people and not caring, because I know some Scorpios are like fanatical about, like, don't tell anybody, this or that. And that kind of thing is like, people don't realize that, but that limits the person. And it's like, is it really that important that it would be earth-shattering if somebody found out? Or is it the ego that is kind of like trying to present itself as invulnerable, all-powerful, doesn't have a weak link, and things like that. And then there's always that distance between you and others, and they sense it. So that's the paradox with Scorpio, because people bear their souls to you. And you may be very trustworthy in that regard, and you don't gossip and things like that. I think that a lot of Scorpios would, consider that to be a sacred violation if they were to do that. So you may be a good confessor, where people come to you like they come to a priest and tell you their secrets, and they're safe with you, but it's like a one-way street. And it's just a very interesting situation that occurs. So let's see here. So we have that, but then the higher message is the Page of Swords. This is kind of what I'm talking about. So while you're feeling more open, there still is that part of you that has that reserve, that paranoia, that kind of being. But also, the thing is that suspicion is what I'm talking about. When I say paranoia, I mean suspicion, where you don't necessarily trust what people are saying. The Page of Swords, in some cases, the Page of Swords can be like, hey, you have to be more discerning, and you have to really do your own research about something. But in this particular context, I don't know. I think that it's talking about that there's still work that needs to be done. This is a spiritual position, so it's more of an inner work than anything else. It's not like an outer event. And it's just kind of a continuation of what I said. And by the way, this can also apply to the workplace. It's not just in relationships. If you're in a position of authority, Scorpio, and you're the kind of person who feels a lot more confident about yourself, perhaps, and that's what's kind of resembling, what the Queen of Swords resembles. You have to be able to trust others, the people that are under you, and if you can't, that will affect your ability to be a good leader, because people want to know that those who are their bosses, managers, and whatnot, support them and have faith in them. you know, and I think that's kind of where I'm going with that. The Page of Swords is always looking for inside dirt, you know, and that's kind of Machiavellian, and even with relationships, I definitely think that if you're in a new relationship, you should not necessarily take somebody's word at face value, because people do sometimes present themselves in a certain way that's not true. But there's a delicate balance between that and being overly suspicious and thinking something is too good to be true, so you're kind of like, okay, let's find out what's really going on here. What crosses you is the Magician, and this is a card of autonomy, and, you know, and this kind of goes along with what I'm saying too, because the Magician, that's why they show this, whatever you want to call it, a table or things where it has all these elements in it. It's to show that the person is able to do for themselves. They're resourceful. They don't need other people to, they don't have to depend on somebody else. And a Scorpio person would never admit this when they're in a personal relationship, but the behavior that is exhibited is kind of like somebody who is acting dependent, is acting like, if this person is not in my life, then, you know, who am I? Or that kind of mentality. And that is kind of what we expect from a person who's very insecure. And a Scorpio person would say, I'm not insecure. Well, you know, that kind of shows that sort of behavior. So really, a person who wants to express their own self-confidence, self-love, which I see with the Queen of Wands, and this is in the centerpiece, has to be able to be emotionally open, emotionally vulnerable, let the chips fall where they may, and say, it doesn't matter what another person does. I'm always going to land on my feet. I'm always going to love myself. And a person in my life is a bonus. It's not a necessity. You know, I'm going to be okay. If your moon is in Cancer, Libra, Pisces, for instance, or you have inner planets in Libra, you may, Scorpio, be more vulnerable or susceptible to this sort of, I need to have a relationship kind of a thing. And so for you, you have to emphasize your autonomy even more so. In terms of work, it's also about encouraging others to have the same strategy. So I feel like Scorpio people are, you know, if you're going to manage others, you will probably emphasize a lot of autonomy for them. I don't know. Maybe there are some Scorpios. I mean, Scorpio is associated with power, so there may be some Scorpios who believe in being that autocratic type of leader. In those types of cases, you have to, you know, recognize that each of your employees is their own person, and to encourage independence, because it will actually make you a better leader when you are playing up their expertise and teaching them how to trust themselves. And instead of being like a micromanager, maybe that's what the Page of Swords is indicating, like somebody who's micromanaging, and that is injurious to the workplace atmosphere. And being, you know, teaching others how to do that, because the Magician is somebody who, like I said, relies on the self. And there's other things too, is like maybe for some of you, you're allowing yourself to be in a job where you have that illusion of authority, when you can feel like a queen. You can feel like, you're in this situation, but really you would be happier working for yourself. And this is, the two things that can lure people are money, if they're working for somebody else, and status. So your job title. And that can keep people stuck in something that they really are not that passionate about. The Wands is about passion. It's also about autonomy. Actually the Magician card, I believe, connects to Aries. So, maybe there's an Aries person in your life that is not good for you. Who knows? But in any case, very interesting. And of course, Leo with the Queen of Wands, I think. What's coming in is the Strength card. So this is more of the same. I think there's just, for Leo, for some of you, you're having a full moon in your sign. Maybe some of these things will become apparent to you, where you start to see what exactly is going on in your life and how it relates to, well, what I mean about going on in your life, things that you have not really dealt with that need to be let go of. Certain life situations, maybe certain people, but certain patterns. And this is in order to obviously make you a better person. And so the full moon is on the 7th. It's at 17 degrees of Scorpio. So it's like pretty, halfway through that sign. So actually, if you're born, this is going to be very general, but around May 8th and beyond, November 8th and beyond, in that general vicinity, you have to check your actual sun sign degree. This may, for some of you, this is going to fall in your first house. For some of you, this is going to fall in your 12th house. And when it falls in your 12th house, it's very interesting. The 12th and the first houses are similar in one way. One is the unconscious karmic part of yourself, the 12th house, and the first house is the conscious self. So, so the 12th house you could call the spiritual self. So if you have it in your 12th house, this is a great time for you to let go of, or at the very least be aware of, certain patterns that hold you back, kind of trip you up, keep you stuck in place, and some karma and some past life patterns and addictions. And in the first house, this will be, more of a conscious thing. So I want to stop being so concerned about what other people think of me. I want to stop being a couch potato. I want to, because the first house can be the body too. So, there's all kinds of things that could represent. And with the first house, for those that's falling in your first house, the sun, there's an opposition from the sun in the 7th house of committed partnership. So that could definitely be partnership issues coming to the surface, and you realizing something about yourself as it relates to a partner. So either, in some cases, it might be that you realize that you have to improve yourself. Maybe you're not as kind as you need to be to your partner, or as granting them the need for their own time or their own ideas. It's not just necessarily that you're the one that is in the right, although I think that according to this, there's a lot of, 3 of these cards are wands, so it's about about self-expression, the self, and maybe championing the self. And so the Strength card, building up that sense of confidence, but inner confidence that has to do with knowing thyself and the outcome. The King of Wands. This is the ultimate, especially in the outer world, of self-mastery and of like, I am a sovereign soul and I have the right to certain things in this life. Self-esteem, self-respect. That's a big one. And this can run the gamut of all types of relationships, be it professional or personal. And so you got both the Queen and the King of Wands. The Queen of Wands is, to me, more of the inner confidence and the inner work, and the outer, the King. And to me, because the Magician card is in the challenge position, you may have developed this very common belief, Scorpio, that life is happening to you, and you have to get more into that feeling of like you can call the shots. You can't control everything, though. You can, and some people, they try to control other people instead of trying to do what they can for themselves, and that's not a good idea either. So we're not talking about those things. We're talking about what you can do and why you should do it. So in any case, I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a personal reading, please click on the link below. Thank you. Bye.